humans are a spectrum of different possibilities.
Yeah.
And we're giving everyone the same exact test. The same exact metric for success is the most ridiculous and dumb thing that we could possibly do. We're not teaching kids how to find their passion, how to find their gifts, how to find their innate genius that they're born with. When you have an education system that doesn't help kids find their why, what the heck do you think we're going to get as a society? There would be times where we were about to go into a frontline village and there would be like explosions, and then it would stop. We'd go in, do our distribution, leave, and then it would start going. Wow. Yeah. You think of like things that happened in history, like the Mayflower, or George Washington crossing the Delaware River.
Yeah.
Riley Reid. I see that if I didn't leave Impaulsive, I wouldn't be doing what I am today.
Hey everybody, before we jump into today's episode, I just want to thank you so much for the support on our last episode. Thank you especially to Brooks for coming on the podcast and having such a fun conversation. That was awesome. Now, I have a small favor to ask. 50% of you guys are not subscribed. If you like this kind of content, if you want to see more of it, the best way to do that for free is to subscribe and hit the post notifications bell so you'll never miss an episode when we post. My promise to you, if you do that, Matt and I will keep pushing every single episode to bring you the guests you want to see and the content you want to hear. All right, that's it. Thank you so much for being here. And without further ado, let's get into the episode. I've never done this. I've never held papers to do this, but I guess with a guest like Spencer, I'll do an actual intro. So today, I'm sitting down with Spencer Taylor, former co-host of the Impaulsive podcast with Logan Paul, a true humanitarian who's been at the front lines helping people from Gaza to Ukraine, and a man on a mission to expose and transform the education system. He's a new father, the guy who single-handedly decided Vibe needed a Y for some reason, and most importantly, an honorary Latino, a new member of the Honorary Latino Club.
Hey, wow.
Bienvenido. How are we feeling?
Muy bien.
Muy bien. Nice, dude. So, yeah, no, we're working on it.
Yeah.
Maybe to address the elephant in the room, why are you at my house right now? How did this happen?
Question.
Why are we here?
That's a good question. You reached out to me, right? Did you reach out via email or Instagram first?
Okay, so we can get it. So way back when you were in Hawaii, I reached out to you,
really?
And I was like, "Bro, your videos are super inspiring," and you responded. You were like, "These type of comments keep me going," and then you posted on your story. I think that was in like 2020.
Whoa,
right?
That's wild.
And
I didn't know that.
Yeah, so then I followed up, I guess now a year ago, just to hop on a Zoom call with you, DM'd you, and you were like. You said yes for some reason.
I was like, I like that random stuff because not everybody, I feel in life, people don't like, I used to shoot the shot, right? I used to be like coming out of college and I would just randomly shoot shots and like most of them wouldn't land, some of them would. So I think it's like important to turn around, return the favor. Yeah.
And you said something to me, if you want to share it, why particularly was it interesting to you that a Northwestern student was reaching out to you?
About the screening?
Just in general, like here from Northwestern.
Well, yeah, so I almost went to Northwestern. I applied to go to Northwestern and I got denied. This was like, I was like really trying to get into Northwestern. And at the time, like my grades, my grades were decent. I think I got like a 25 on the ACT, but that's, in order to get into Northwestern, you gotta have a little, just...
Test optional, folks. It was incredible. It was
also, so we weren't... Test optional. That's awesome that you guys have that now, but we didn't have
no
test optional back then. They were what's your test looking like? And mine was not the best. So But yeah, I didn't get in. I wanted to come to the school, the media college, but yeah, I didn't make it. I went to Michigan State, which I was stoked to at Michigan State. But yeah, that was. I remember when you said you were going to Northwestern. I'm like, all right, bet. That's awesome. I wanna.
And then how did we get to like this? Like, why? Like, this is strange.
That's I don't remember how exactly it happened, but we decided like, hey, let's do a screening of the Death of Recess here. And so we just did that. We had a nice turnout.
Yeah.
Solid turnout.
A lot of educators. A lot of people passionate about education reform, which is sick. And so for those of you who don't know, Death of Recess is your documentary. Came out January 2nd. And so I guess broad bird's eye, like what made you want to make that documentary?
Well, I went to a public school in Michigan and I grew up, I loved school when I was a kid. I loved recess, playing outside with my friends. I loved a lot of different things about school. But then something changed when I went from fifth to sixth grade, when they started to actually, my school took away recess completely going into middle school. And I remember from that point on, it was like school became this kind of like fear tactics of like, hey, you're not going to be ready for high school if you don't do this and that. And then you're not going to be ready for life if you don't do good on this test. And I just saw that school changed, and I didn't know why, but I started to not like school. And I started to have like a resentment towards authority and towards, people that were trying to tell you what to do. Because I was always passionate about video and making videos and cameras, but my school didn't care about that at all. It was like, no, well, what are your test scores? How about math, reading, writing, all these things. But I didn't know why I was learning what I was learning. I was just being like crammed all this information, and a lot of it, I was just having people tell me what to do all the time, not ask me what I wanted to do. So I just developed a resentment towards authority because of that. And over the years, I looked back and I started to see all my friends were kind of losing their creativity. And a lot of people around me were just working jobs for the money, and they weren't happy. And so I started to look back at like, hey, why is this that way? Oh, well, I think it's the education system. And so let me start researching it. Let me start researching why this is, why this is the way it is. Why do schools get rid of recess? Why are people losing their creativity? So I started to ask some of those questions, and then that led me on a decade-long journey all around the world, and that led me to make The Death of Recess.
No, that's incredible. And like you said, this took you 10 years to make, which is insane. Would you say that moment when your school took away recess, was that the moment you were like, this system is broken? Or was there another moment like growing up where you're like, this is the way it's supposed to be?
Yeah, there was a lot of little moments. It was definitely when my school took away recess, I remember that really didn't sit right with me. And any of my friends, we were all like kind of upset about it. And you're like young, got a ton of energy, and you're just stuck in a building for like 7-8 hours a day. You're naturally gonna get a little crazy. It's a lot of like young little testosterone minions running around that need some space to run.
Bro, I have no idea. I remember I got here to Northwestern, I was like, dog, 2 classes a day, bro? You know what I'm gonna do with my day with 2 classes? Like, I was so normalized to 7 a.m. to 3 p.m. with maybe 25 minutes of recess, jam-packed, just cramming information. And I got here, and it was like 2 classes, and I was like, wow, there's so much more time to explore other things.
Yeah, the way we do education in America is just ass backwards.
Yeah.
It's completely ass backwards.
What do you think is the number one reason why we have an education now that seems to be a disservice to its students' full capacity? And what I mean by that is, like, a lot of people say nowadays with what's happening in politics, like, how is it that we spend the most amount of money on healthcare, yet we have declining life expectancy, or we have a increasing chronic illness rates? Like, how that doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
And in documentary, you talk about like the funding for education is not the problem. It's kind of it's there.
Yeah, we're
but
spending
nothing
more than you ever have.
But nothing's improving. So like,
that's getting worse.
I guess in a sense, the question would be like, who's the big pharma of education?
Yeah, we get into it in the documentary for the deep dive. But the testing industry is, I don't think people really understand how much money is being made by the testing industry. And, people don't understand of how much money is being made by just like the bureaucracy and the like administration of our public schools. And the amount of money that goes to district administrators is insane. I mean, it's like 95% of all the funding and all the growth in our education system over the past decade has been to administrators. And you only see about like 5% of that going to students. So the system's just got very bloated, and it doesn't care about results. All this testing as being the benchmark of a human, if they're successful or not. Like, hey, let's give all of us, which we're all born with individual genius, individual gifts, but let's give all of us the same exact test.
Right.
How does that make any sense? It's like one of my favorite images is there's like a monkey, a fish, an elephant, a giraffe, and they're all like standing next to a professor and they're looking at a tree. And he says, all right, hey, today's test is you're all going to climb this tree. And of course, the monkey's going to be able to climb it. The fish can't even climb it. Like, that is our education system.
Yeah.
We have all of the, like, humans are a spectrum of different possibilities.
Yeah.
And we're giving everyone the same exact test. The same exact metric for success is the most ridiculous and dumb thing that we could possibly do. And it's killing creativity. And then, so you see it in our society. You see it in our architecture. You see it in basically just about everything. You see it in the mental health crisis, the depression. You see it in people's unhappiness. Like, a lot of people are just unhappy doing what they love. Not everybody, but a lot of people. And that all comes from our education system.
You said it today, actually, after the Q&A, or during the Q&A, that Finland, doctors are paid and seen the same as like doctors or surgeons.
Teachers. Teachers
are. Why is it that you think it's so backwards here? Like, I come from a family, full transparency, 2 teachers, right? And I know for a fact they're not the problem. They totally care about,
are awesome.
Like, they pour out their life to help others learn, right? So it can't be them that's the problem. But like, why is it that there's such a value issue with teachers?
So the modern day factory traditional education system started during the Industrial Revolution. It actually started from John D. Rockefeller, and he gave in today's money, over $300 million to basically create the General Education Board. And his mission, he was, the industrial tycoon of the time. He needed factory workers. He needed cheap labor that could do very mundane, basic tasks. But the number one thing he needed was for people to obey authority. Do what you're told. Like, I don't need you creatively thinking or any of that. I just need you to assemble.
Because it produced factory workers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so the Industrial Revolution, we had so many different jobs and everybody's working the factories. Like, my grandpa was working in a car factory. Even my dad was working in a car factory. So like, that's not that far out from us.
Right.
So our education system was created to produce those factory workers, and it worked, right? For that time period, it didn't do I say it worked. It achieved its goal, but ultimately it came at a cost, and that cost is it absolutely decimated creativity, because you got to look back at like some of these older classrooms. You're like smacking kids, like telling them to follow orders, making them all sit in a row, making them all stare at the teacher and obey what the teacher's saying. You do that over and over and over and over, and it slowly just kills all the creativity.
I feel like there are a lot of people like, man, if our education is that messed up, we're doing pretty good. Like, the U.S. is still cooking. Like, So how is it that it can be so wrong, but we still have so much success as a country?
Well, I think a lot of people branch out of education and still, pursue their dreams and their goals. So people don't let the education system, hamper them down. And at a certain point, our education system is still, I want to give it credit. It's still, it can be very valuable. It can be very good for, people like engineers and doctors and, but I think it's probably tailored towards about 20% of the population, whereas the other 80% of the population, it just doesn't work very well for them. But at the end of the day, it worked during the Industrial Revolution. There was a need for factory workers, but in our society now, especially with AI, it's a whole different landscape.
But education has not changed since that moment, which is crazy. Everything else, everything around us, but all these things have advanced.
It's tough. I mean, I am very passionate about education reform, and I want to, that's why I made this film, because I want to spark a conversation and ultimately shift the paradigm. Because, I didn't just focus on the doom and gloom in the film. I go around to a bunch of different schools that I believe are really awesome solutions, and I showed what education can look like. So that's why you saw after the screening, we were talking to all the educators, and there's a lot of excitement because people are seeing alternative ways to do education. And, that's where we're at right now is the solutions exist. But for whatever reason, our education system is just not adopting those solutions.
And do you think that that is because of the testing industry?
Yeah, I think it's the linchpin. I think if you removed the entry requirements to college and really the pressure to go to college, and you made our K through 12 system much more integrated within the community and help kids find their passions at a younger age instead of bogging them down with academics. There's an awesome solution called Alpha School right now, which they're using AI. So they have an AI tutor that helps the kids learn in just 2 hours per day. And then the rest of the day they spend working on their passion project. But yet their academic results are crushing the public school system.
And it's because it's individualized to the student.
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
And not just one size fits all.
Yeah, the AI tutor basically allows, so like say you're really good at math, but you're not that good at science. The AI tutor will recognize that and it will feed you content to help you get better at science.
Fascinating.
And then it'll help you advance faster in math.
Wow.
So, and it can do that to a classroom of 30 kids individually.
2 hours.
Everybody's learning at their own individualized pace.
So, in your opinion, is college worth it?
Largely for most people, no, it is not worth it, in my opinion. I think for certain degrees, it's worth it in the current society that we have. But I think we need to like restructure how we view higher education in general. It should be much more about apprenticeships, internships, real world experience. And so some universities have good, real world experience and that type of curriculum. But most of college, you're kind of just jumping through the boobs. You're getting your prerequisites.
Yeah.
You're like taking all these BS classes that you don't want to take.
Right.
In that sense, no, it's not worth it because you could be out in the world making money, not getting into debt, building your wealth.
Right.
But in certain cases, you need a degree to, be a doctor or do certain things. So it's like, I don't want to trash it completely, but largely it's not very efficient.
I'm going to out my roommates now, but they're all looking to be consultants and engineers, and that's great. And it's very, they're going to be very well off. But I've talked to a lot of them, and some of them feel like, man, I'm doing this just for the money, and it feels like it's because I need to do this, and not so much that I want to be here. And that's what's interesting about elite institutions like Northwestern. There's so many benefits.
It is what you make it.
Exactly.
I think the key is like what I learned when I went to college is it was very valuable for like the connections that I made, the clubs that were there, the extracurricular things. I would say it was very worth it. Was it worth the amount of money I paid? Probably not, but I made the best out of it.
Right.
And so I think that's what it comes down to is your mindset of, there's a lot of people that I came across when I was in college that are just dragging their feet, just doing what they have to do to get by, just so they can get a job to make money. But what I found is that doesn't lead you to happiness.
There you go.
That just leads you to be like another cog in the wheel of the system. And slowly, okay, so what do? You just work for somebody, you make a bunch of money, you have a family.
Golden handcuffs, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like, you gotta love what you do.
Yeah.
And if you don't love what you do, is that really why we came here to this world?
Right.
To just like make money and get by? It's like, I don't think so personally.
I think my generation, there's been an uptick in like spirituality, but I also think that that's coming off the heels of a very intense crisis of meaning.
I think as kids, like I just had a daughter. I mean, she's not speaking yet, but I know like when we're all kids, we're super curious. We're asking very deep questions. Like if you're ever around kids, they're super smart and they're asking questions. They're really curious about how everything works. And if you think about it, then you go to school and you don't get to really ask those deep questions. You just got to focus on like all of these things that some adult is telling you have to do, but they're not connecting the why.
Yes.
And that's to me why we're in this crisis is because we don't know why we're learning what we're learning, or we don't know why we're doing what we're doing. So we don't have a strong connection to our why.
It's the authority thing, right? The kids are doing it just because they're told they have to do it. But it's like, why am I doing this?
Exactly.
And so what you're saying is when the why is attached, learning skyrockets.
Yeah.
Or especially if it's a why they're passionate about.
There's a book called Man's Search for Meaning by Viktor Frankl. And he was a survivor of the Holocaust. So he lived in he worked in the concentration camps. fascinating book, fascinating guy. And he basically figured out that people that had a connection to their purpose or their why after getting out of the concentration camps were the ones that survived at a much higher rate than the people that lost anything to shoot for or to grasp.
Yeah.
And so he found through that horrible experience, it's our search for meaning, it's our search for purpose that keeps us alive and that gives us like our energy and passion. And so, yeah, when you have an education system that doesn't help kids find their why, what the heck do you think we're going to get as a society? It's not a surprise that, yeah, we have this huge identity crisis, mental health crisis.
Yeah.
It all comes from that. We're not teaching kids how to find their passion, how to find their gifts, how to find their innate genius that they're born with.
Yeah, and then add a bunch of prescription medications for the ADD that's only caused for the processed food they're eating and the lack of sunlight. And you're just like, then you get to where you are and everyone's scratching their heads. And the way we view, once again, I'm going to get up my soapbox about healthcare, but like the way we view the human body, it's compartmentalized. It's like the shoulder's the issue. Treat the shoulder, and it's never like the holistic thing.
Yeah, doctors going through traditional medicine, they take like one class on nutrition.
Insane.
You know, and then when you go look at like the cafeteria of what kids are eating, it's like absolute ass.
Dude, I used to eat jumbo. I remember this because as a fifth grader, I was like, I'm getting a little fat. I had a jumbo. I would eat jumbo chocolate chip cookies with chocolate milk and like fried mozzarella sticks.
Yep.
And
cheesy mozzarella sticks.
Oh, dude.
Fosco's.
And I would slam them.
Yeah.
But it's like, and then I'm in class and I'm like, I can't really focus.
Exactly.
And they're like, you need medication.
Yeah,
it's
like,
like, no.
I had like 6 Mountain Dews, and I'm like,
yeah,
chill.
Dude, I'm rocking on Baja Blast right now. I'm gonna learn about calculus.
Exactly.
Dude, and then we point the finger at the kids, like they're the problem.
Yeah, exactly. It's bonkers to give kids like prescription drugs. We're like one of the only countries that does that allows that.
Yeah,
it's insane. I mean, we literally live. But when you look at how we're doing things, you're just like, what?
All right, so here's what's stressing.
So I think that looking at it from a positive lens is we need to inspire the next generation, and young people need to find a purpose. They need to find a meaning. They need to find a reason to live. And I actually think that it's through our problems, it's through our challenges that we do find that purpose or that meaning. In all the problems that we have in society, those are just opportunities. And so when we train people to see them as opportunities and to actually, be a part of the change and to empower them, I feel like that's how we make the change. Not creating victims and people that are complaining about it, but creating empowered and passionate people.
What has spirituality meant to you? And do you think that people in my generation especially could benefit from reconnecting in some level of spirituality?
Yeah, I mean, to me, like spirituality is how I would define it. It's like the unseen world around us. There's something more. I feel like we all kind of feel that way. There's something more to just this life. And so it's those deeper questions, like I was saying, as kids that we're grappling with that we'll probably never know the answers until the day we die and like transition and see what else is out beyond this human shell. But that's the way I see it. I see this as just a human avatar, and we are all connected. We all have a soul or a spirit, whatever you want to call it, and there's something beyond us that's invisible. It's like you can't see Wi-Fi, but it's there. Right?
Yeah.
Like, how is my cell phone right now getting service? I can't see that. That doesn't mean it's not there.
Right.
So I think that's the same thing with spirit. There's like a realm, there's multiple, probably infinite realms that we're just not fully aware of.
What was that journey like for you specifically? I guess post-college.
Yeah, well, I grew up as a Christian. I am a Christian now.
Right.
That means I have... we've gotten into some deeper conversations of like how I reconnected to Jesus and how I have a more nuanced approach than how I grew up from like the traditional church. But yeah, I kind of got away from the traditional church because there was like certain questions that I had that I just didn't feel like I could get answered. And I just didn't have that connection as much. I've always had a connection to something bigger, to God. And then, I went on my own journey in LA, kind of getting lost in the sauce a little bit. I did a pretty good job of staying out of like the party scene and all that, but I was around a lot of celebrities, a lot of big names, and naturally, I think if you're not careful, that can definitely pull you away from your spiritual side of things. You can get caught up in the ego. So I did kind of get caught up in the ego. And then I had some experiences with psychedelics that really showed me, where I was at and, the disconnect of the ego. And it helped bring me back and recalibrate me to my spiritual walk or my faith. And I've since, like I said, I have a very nuanced approach to faith and how I view it, but that brought me back to being a service naturally. I work with a nonprofit now, so I go do a lot of disaster relief. So I really found my faith through actions, like through doing things, because I think that was the main thing that scared me off a little bit from religion growing up, was seeing people that were like, yeah, I believe in Jesus, but then they would act like totally not Christ-like. And that's actually what scared me away from the faith, where I'm like, y'all are talking about Jesus, but like, you guys are mean. They're like doing so crazy stuff. So I really learned through just going out, being of service to people that I didn't agree with, different races, different backgrounds. That really helped humble me and bring me back down into back down to earth. Yeah, really, so to say. Like, I worked with Logan Paul, Jake Paul. Right. I was in New Hollywood. I was in the heart of it. Yeah. And I left that completely. And I went and now a full-time humanitarian. And full-time with a nonprofit. I don't really, I took a hard left turn.
Are you much more content now?
Oh, yeah. So
why do you think that is?
Because I have purpose. I have meaning.
You don't think you did back then?
I think I did a little bit. Yeah, I would say I was looking more from like fame and attention and being seen. Yeah. And that did not lead me to happiness. It did not, man, because when you're relying on other people's opinions, it's all good when the opinions are good, but when those opinions are bad, it's like, whoa, if you get attached to it.
Yeah, if you put your value on that. Yeah. Right. You have no like rock. There's nothing's ever like consistent.
Exactly. Yeah. And now, I had when I was in Ukraine, I had a deeply spiritual shift, I would say, because I spent a lot of time along the front lines. And so inherently you come face to face with the reality of death. You have to accept the fact that I could die. And when you accept that, okay, today I could die. There's not anything I can control. It is up to God. If God wants to take me today, God took that woman that I met yesterday. God took those 2 volunteers the day that they were in the day before me. If God wants to take me, all right, I trust. I know it's an extreme, like I'm not recommending everybody do that, but I put my faith in God, and I saw so many miraculous things happen that I just convinced me that there is.
Could you touch on that a little bit? Like, is there anyone in particular that stuck out to you? Like, I have no other way to describe this other than this is a miracle.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of miracles, I think. So I really deepened my connection to prayer when I was in Ukraine. I'd gotten away from prayer for a long time. And so when I went to Ukraine, I started to go to the cathedrals and just connect. And
are they Orthodox out there?
Yeah. Orthodox Christian. And beautiful cathedrals. And so I would pray. And I would pray in my apartment. I'd pray when we're going out on missions. But I would always ask for protection. And my prayer was always, God, please take us to the people that are in the most need. And take us to where we can be of the most service. That was like my prayer. And time again, we would be taken to these frontline villages where people had not gotten any food in weeks, sometimes months. Wow. And, like artillery is exploding nearby, missiles are coming in, drones are flying over us. But where I really saw God working was there would be times where we were about to go into a frontline village and there would be like explosions and then it would stop. We'd go in, do our distribution, leave, and then it would start going.
Wow.
Yeah. That happened dozens of times.
Wow.
Where like right after we leave, we get a notification, be like, yeah, a missile just hit there. And so that would happen all the time. And so I just was like, okay, well, I think this is a divine mission. I think God is protecting us, and I just thought I'm still here. You know, God has a purpose for me.
Yeah, I'm obviously a Christian, but I'm also thinking as a non-Christian watching. What do you say to the people who say that should be evidence for a lack of God? Is the fact that you even have to go to a war-torn country that's been completely decimated for no reason.
Yeah. I mean, it's a difficult thing to grasp.
Yeah.
I thought when I would go to a war zone, I'd like my connection to God would be decreasing.
Yeah.
Because I'm like, and trust me, there was times where I had to grapple with that.
I'm sure.
Why the hell is this happening? Like, why are these innocent people dying? You know, that's a tough one to grapple with.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, I think not all questions can be answered. There's certain things that I have to like surrender and trust in the bigger picture.
Yeah.
Because I don't know. I don't know why these souls are going through that.
Yeah.
But God does. I trust. And I think that life is ultimately eternal. And then what we're experiencing is moments that are passing by.
Spiritual beings living a human experience.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so in the bigger picture, I'm sure it makes sense.
Yeah.
Somehow. I have no idea how. But I think part of it is surrendering and finding comfort in not knowing.
Isn't there like such an irony in like the freedom of letting go of control? It like doesn't make sense. But for me, the main thing I noticed in my life when I became like more serious with my faith is like, all right, I can now rest in the fact that I do not know. And I can just kind of live in that because I trust that there's something, some being, some force that knows more than I do. Whereas when you live without believing in anything, like if you're just a strict materialist or whatever, you got to grapple with the fact that these things are happening. And then it's just like,
Yeah, that's a really good point. I think how I would say it is not everything can be understood with the intellect.
Right.
There are certain things in life that have to be experienced and lived through the heart. And that's what I experienced doing humanitarian work. That's why I would say I'm happier now than I was when I was working in that space. Because that was like ego is much more ego driven. This is like you're living from the heart, which can't be fully explained.
Right.
It's like when you're living from the heart and you're asking God to lead you. I'm like, wow, all these things are happening that I'm like, I don't even feel like I'm in control of. I'm just being led somewhere.
Right.
And that's an experience from the heart.
That's so real. Yeah, I often think about like there's a lot that can be explained as like a strict materialist, but like the concept or emotion of love, it's like there's not necessarily an evolutionary reason to experience love because love can be romantic, but it can also be just like I can love you. And there's something that just that you can only describe that as something felt by the heart. And that's why everyone struggles to in words in movies and songs they try to define it, but it's so hard because it's just something that you just intrinsically feel.
Yeah.
And it's hard to attribute that to like, oh well, no, science tells us this is exactly why love exists. It's like it's tough. It's very tough.
No way that we can explain it all.
Yeah.
There's no way.
And there's freedom in that.
There is freedom in that.
I'm curious. A student who was at Michigan State, swam at Michigan State. Your family, they were all swimmers. How do you go from that to working with Logan Paul?
So I took a job working with Bob Proctor, and his whole thing. Most people probably don't know who Bob Proctor is. There's a documentary called The Secret, and he was one of the guys in it. It's all about law of attraction. It's all about using your mind to, visualize and create your reality. Basically like imagine yourself already having what it is. Manifest it. Yeah. And so I had started reading some of these books in college, and one thing led to another. I was working with Bob Proctor, and I was like reprogramming my subconscious mind for a couple of years while I was working with him, just reading. I was like deep in study. I wasn't going to any parties. I was like celibate. I mean, I went like
Homie was dialed
I
in.
owned the personal book for that whole dude. I was in deep and like just fully all in on, I started reading a book called The Law of Success by Napoleon Hill, and it just blew my mind. It was like
Wow.
unlike anything I had read before.
This is as a junior in college?
Yeah, sophomore going into junior year of college. And I was just like, you know what? I'm not very happy in my life right now. I'm going to read this and apply it and just go all in. And my life improved drastically. And I decided, so I was working with Bob Proctor, but then I decided to move to Los Angeles just because I wanted to try something new. So I had no contacts. I just literally moved out to Los Angeles and I got a Airbnb right outside of LAX. That's all I don't know.
By your life.
Yeah, I was like, I'm just gonna
Okay.
set up shop here by LAX. And I just started, networking with people, and I got invited to go film at an event with Jake Paul. I didn't know who Jake Paul was. This was before YouTube, anything like that.
This is like before Team 10?
Oh, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I actually helped him. I was one of the first videographers of Team 10.
Wow.
So I helped him like get Team 10 going. And then my buddy Cade, I like connected him with Jake, and they made Team 10 like huge. So I was just in early, but the way I started working with Jake is I never charged him for anything in the beginning. I was just like, I was genuinely excited to make videos with other young people who were excited to make videos.
That's cool.
He just had a passion for making videos, and I was like, dude, if you want to make something, I'm like, I'm down.
Mm-hmm.
And it was just like we had a shared passion, and I think it just like the universe connected us. I was in the right place at the right time, kind of vibe.
Yeah.
And so I started working with Jake. I was working with Jake on and off for a couple of years, and then he introduced me to Logan, and then Logan and I would do some stuff here and there. And I eventually had a job working with Logan full time
As videographer.
as his videographer. Yeah,
Okay.
I lived in his house for a couple of years.
Oh, you did? You lived in the house? I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Okay. You were in the, nice, dude. Just getting hit with plates and stuff all the time, or what?
Yeah, throwing a lot of plates on the ground.
Yeah.
It was fun, man. I mean, I came in when I started working with Logan. Everybody hated it.
Yeah.
So I started working with Logan when it wasn't.
I think the two things saved Logan Paul's career: the fight with KSI and the podcast. Because it took for two different reasons. The fight with KSI took the insane spotlight off of the thing that happened and put it onto something else. Where it's like, all right, we all want to see you get knocked out, but like, I'll invest in seeing you get knocked out and not the thing that you did.
Yeah.
The podcast, what it did is it like made him a human being.
Yeah.
Where he's not just the bro who's throwing plates and like doing crazy stuff, but it's like, all right, he has like genuine opinions about things and he thinks things through.
Right.
Which of course now in our society we don't really, we just see the guy on the vlogs, he's crazy, but it was a real person.
Yeah.
How on earth did you become the co-host of that podcast, and what was the inception? Like, what's the Logan Paul Impaulsive inception story?
So, like I said, I came in when everybody's hating on Logan, and he was already building the podcast studio in his house. He had just moved to this like big house in Encino, California, and he was like building the podcast room. But it was kind of like this thought in the back of the mind. And then one day the podcast room was done and we walked in and he's like, yeah, I don't think I'm going to do it by myself. So I think we should just like all three of us, let's just like record one and let's see how it is. And he's like, yeah, like you guys can be the co-host.
That's crazy.
And so we're like, all right. And so we recorded it. And we were like, yeah, I have no idea how that was. And then we went and watched it back, and we were like cracking up. We were laughing at it. We thought it was funny. So we're like, all right, let's just do it like this. That was what kind of made the podcast cool. Is like I was coming more from like a spiritual, and Mike is hilarious.
Yeah.
And it just created this cool dynamic. Yeah. Where it was like kind of some balance. It was a balanced show.
Yeah.
Again, I felt like I was just thrust into this experience. Like it felt like
wild.
Again, I feel like God just like put me on that stage, and I made plenty of mistakes, and I could go back and do. I mean, like anything, I would have done things differently, but It
What do
was
you
like
think
I
you
got
got?
to learn, and I got to learn in front of millions of people, hundreds of millions of people, which is insane.
And I'm sure you all did because none of you guys had experience.
No
Mike was the love sack guy.
Yeah.
Logan
Zero.
Right, and you guys just all like learned with the audience.
Yeah.
Was your first episode with like a sexpert or something?
Yeah, like sexpert. Had Steve-O on. We had like porn stars. I mean, there was a lot.
I remember you had some funny moments in the Call Her Daddy podcast.
Call Her Daddy. Yeah,
I was struggling in that one.
Yeah, I did not like that.
that was a very strange episode.
It was.
Yeah.
I was not about it. Because I mean, even though I was in LA, I was still largely, I mean, actually pretty much the whole time I was working with Logan, I was celibate. I was
Really?
Yeah. Yep. I was like,
Didn't you have a girlfriend at the time?
okay, at a certain point, yes.
Okay.
But for like a good chunk of time with Logan, I was like
Dialed.
into meditation and celibacy.
Wow.
Like I stayed out with
Yeah.
Harvey C completely. I didn't drink alcohol. You know, I was like really trying to, I did get caught up in some things, like smoking weed a little bit too much. But so I had my vices. It's like I wasn't like a perfect human being.
What do you think was your favorite impulsive episode you were on?
Ooh, probably Steve-O.
That guy's a psychopath.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Steve-O got up on the desk and like jumped and caught his wiener between his legs.
The mangina, dude.
The mangina, the flying mangina.
Yeah.
And I saw it from like the back end. That's
brutal.
Yeah. I saw like the backside of what that looked like from behind.
And you're like, this is my favorite episode from Impaulsive.
I grew up like Jackass was Jackass came.
No, we still grew up with Jackass.
Okay. Yeah, Jackass was like the thing when we were kids. Like we all like watched that and then wanted to start doing crazy pranks and all this stuff. And so to like be then sitting with a guy that you were like watching in the movies and like and then seeing his dick, it's like I'm not saying that's why I wanted to see.
Yeah, ladies and gentlemen,
no idea.
his favorite episode is the time you got to
it's getting a little weird, but it was just like wild to see that all come full circle. Like be able to have Steve-O on a show.
Right.
And he was so cool, such a cool dude. So
is he Steve-O on and off camera? Steve-O's just that guy.
Yeah, he's cool.
He's
a cool dude. He's not. A lot of people aren't the same as they're on camera. But he's a cool dude.
What's Logan life like on and off camera, in your opinion? Do you think it's like, is the podcast an accurate representation of what he's like?
I would say it's evolved. I think now Logan is very genuine on. I mean, you have like WWE Logan, which is that's clearly a character.
Yeah.
But that's what they're passionate about. Yeah. So I don't think it's
and being the villain works for him there for sure.
Yeah.
Same thing with Jake and Mike Tyson. Like being the villain is working.
Both of them are really good at having a character online and then having a actually really deep, which is what I was shocked about the most when I met Jake and Logan, is I was expecting them to be like these super weird, goofy guys, but when you like sit and talk with them, you can have super deep conversations. They really value you. They'll connect with you. And then they can also have this character online.
Right. No way. So like you're saying Jake Paul and his like jumping off the roof into a flaming pool era.
As soon as the camera's off, different.
Wow.
Completely different human being.
He just taps into that.
Yeah. Both him and Logan had this on switch. Where it was like overwhelming for me because I didn't have that on switch. So like out of nowhere they'd be like, all right, we're filming. And it took a while for me to get used to that.
And so you mentioned this a little bit, but you said that one of the main reasons you left Impaulsive was, I guess, mental health in a sense, or you needed a break. In your opinion, why did he decide to step away from Impaulsive?
I don't want to put anybody on the spot. I want to like try to just take full accountability for it. But yeah, I just got to a point where I wasn't happy. I wanted to go make this documentary. I wanted to go produce The Death Priestess.
Where you felt your purpose was?
Yeah, I felt like my purpose was over here. And I was doing this thing that was like pulling me away from my purpose. And I just felt like I had to take that leave. And I think, life wasn't easy when I left Impaulsive.
You went straight to Hawaii, right?
Yeah, I went to Hawaii. I love that. That was an awesome chapter. But figuring myself out again, figuring out, like, I actually learned, that's when I learned I don't want to be an influencer.
Wow.
Like, I'm doing this because it works. I'm doing this because it makes money, but I'm not enjoying this.
Wow.
Like, I actually don't enjoy it. And so I was glad I tried it. I tried to kind of be an influencer and do that thing, and I could have been super successful at it. That was one of the things that was difficult to come to terms with, was like, yeah, I could get a lot of views. I could have all this, but it's not what I want. Wow. And then I had all these people around me telling me, dude, come on, do this, do that. You're around Logan. You should be doing this. You should be doing that. So it was like all these voices, and finally, like, it just broke for me. I was like, wow, I just got to get away from all this and, like, actually find myself again.
Dude, stepping away from that is that, I mean, the only way to explain that is you really felt like your purpose was not there, because, like, I guess the world as we know it now would be like, bro, stay. What do you mean?
You're
on Impulsive. You're doing all this stuff. Was it also, like, very financially stable, that situation, or not quite?
Not quite.
So it wasn't like you were leaving a really healthy financial situation to an uncertain.
Yeah, that was kind of part of the issue. Is I was, it got to a certain point where I wasn't making money on it, and that wasn't the main reason by any means. But I was like, I can't do all this for free, like,
just for vibes.
Yeah, I can't.
Yeah.
Like, I literally can't pay bills. So it's like,
were you still his videographer at the time?
No.
Okay, so you were just there, like, for Impulsive.
Yeah.
That was all you were doing for Logan.
Yeah.
Wow.
One where it was just that. So.
Yeah,
I stopped being the videographer, and I think it just was, I was not meant to be there at a certain point. I needed to go through, like, now I see it, being a full-time, working in the humanitarian space. I see that if I didn't leave Impaulsive, I wouldn't be doing what I am today.
Right.
So now I'm like content. I know I made the right decision, but so at the time I'm like, oh my God, did I make the right decision? You're overthinking it.
Everyone's telling you, like, crazy,
talking to you and saying this and that. But then, that's when I, like, really again reconnected with my purpose. And connected to my faith and my spirituality. God opened up this opportunity to go to Ukraine, and that led to where I'm at today. So
yeah, something I really admire about you is that when we were at the screening, I was looking at you and I was watching you talk to a teacher who's just, like, very concerned about the current situation of education, and the attentiveness and, like, the care you were giving that person. It's so, like, you'd have no idea this guy was with Logan Paul and he was doing all this. Like, you'd have no idea. It seems like that is, you really feel at home when you're talking to teachers who want to fix the education system, and it just seems like you don't really care about what you, not that you don't care in a bad way, but you're just like, that wasn't fulfilling. What's really fulfillment is a screening of a bunch of teachers trying to reform the education system, and that's what it fires you up.
Yeah, and it's like that's a hard pivot to go from.
It's an insane pivot.
The Logan Paul audience to then education reform. It's like, how do you? Yeah, and that's what I would tell anybody that's looking at pursuing their passion or doing something different. It is scary as shit, man. When you're, like, going down this path, especially if you're, like, in college, you decided, I'm going to be an engineer, I'm going to be a veterinarian, or I'm going to do this, and then you're 2-3 years into it, and you're like, I don't like this.
Terrifying.
You have that decision of, I'm just going to keep going down this path and make the money and do that thing. Or there is the other side, which I took this path, and it is a freaking hard path. I'm not going to, like, sugarcoat it. Or you can go this way, and you can be like, I'm going to go this different path and try something new. I'm going to look like an idiot. I'm going to have a lot of people around me say I'm doing the wrong thing. I'm could be making a lot less money, but I'll be happy. I will be happy that I'm trying something new. And I would encourage more people to take that path.
Yeah.
And it's a scary thing to do.
You're talking to someone who's in the midst of it. I am, like I said, all of my roommates are engineers, and I'm sitting on a podcast right now. And I would love to continue doing something like this after college. So I'm very much chasing my dream without any sort of financial backing. Going to a school, this is where it's very interesting, right? I go to a school where it's like, bro, you got into Northwestern, get a degree where you can get a banging job. And I'm kind of like, nah, I really like talking to people
Hey, you gotta listen to that, man. You gotta, it's you live beyond the logic. Go to where your heart's calling you, and when you learn how to like just like calm down the mind a little bit and really live where your heart's calling you, it's not gonna make sense.
Yeah.
It's not.
No.
It's the thing. The path forward will not make sense.
Because you can't see. There's no linear path.
Yeah. All you can do is just take the next step forward in faith and trust.
Right.
And Steve Jobs said you can only connect the dots looking backwards.
So
You can't connect them looking forwards, or you have to trust that they will align in your future.
Right.
So that's a really beautiful way to live. And I'm not saying like, don't make money. Everybody's got to make money, right? But don't give up your passion. So whatever you have to do to make money, as long as it's, not harming others and it's like, a benefit to society, then do that. But like if you're passionate about music or you're passionate about podcasting, don't stop doing that. Go do your job, work, make the money you have to make to fund your purpose, to fund your passion. That's the key. It's like the Japanese
Ikigai,
right?
Dude. All right, so before we land the plane with this podcast, I want to talk about Vybesource. How did that start? I checked the Vybesource Instagram with the Y. It's important with the Y, and it's like it's at like almost 900K. What is? There you go. What inspired Vybesource, and what are you still doing with that?
So Vibe was inspired by when I was working for Bob Proctor. I got this idea to create basically like a brand where I could bring some of this like wisdom and this positive mindset to social media, because Instagram was kind of new at the time. And so I came up with the slogan, which is visualize yourself better every day. And so that's what Vibe stands for. So it's a process of seeing yourself better every single day, like visualizing how would I look like if I was, better or achieving my dreams, right? So that's the slogan that I came up with, and I just started pumping out content back in 2015. Just
really that long ago?
Quotes, yeah.
And you still do the daily quotes, right?
Yep, still do the daily quotes.
What's its main mission now in terms of like what people can like get out of it other than the quotes? I know there's something else behind it, right?
Well, that's kind of what I'm in the process of figuring out with education and the death of recess. I would say that's where I'm trying to figure out how to bring, Vybesource and visualization to like the next generation, through kids and through learning, because again, back to like where we originally started, our education system doesn't really talk about visualization or how to use your mind to like manifest your reality. Like there's not really any of that.
No,
I didn't really learn anything about my mind until when I was in college and I started reading these books about my mind. So think about that. I'm like 22 years old, the first time I'm learning about how my subconscious mind works. So I'm actively working on creating some form of a curriculum that we could give to younger kids and younger people so that they can learn about the process of visualization.
I remember when Jake was going to fight Tyron Woodley, I think every single day he would say to himself, I will knock out, defeat, and something Tyron Woodley.
Yeah.
And it seems like both Logan and him are much on that way.
Logan and Jake that was one thing that drew me to them. They had, I remember when I first met Logan, I had to go to the bathroom, and on his mirror, he had all of these sticky notes that were like affirmations. Like, I will be the #1 entertainer in the world. And he would put all these affirmations on his mirror. So I found while I was in LA that the majority of celebrities, the majority of powerful people understand how to use their mind. They understand affirmations, they understand visualization, using their breath to get into deeper states of consciousness. There's so much of it.
All right. We like to end every podcast with a segment on this show. So we're going to do that. Before that, ladies and gentlemen, this podcast is sponsored. This is the first sponsored podcast. This podcast is sponsored by the Death of Recess.
Yeah, if you scan this QR code, it'll take you to view the Death of Recess. You can actually purchase it and watch it, share it with everyone you know.
Pay it forward.
Pay it forward, yeah, exactly. Share it. Our mission is to shift the paradigm of traditional education And the only way that we're going to do that is to share this film and to really, expand that conversation all across the country and all across the world.
All right, so we figured in the spirit of recess, we would finish with a recess game. So here's the thing. I don't know if anybody else played this at recess. I was talking to
I've never read this game, to be honest.
Maybe this was just a me thing. But did you ever play Hot Seat?
Hot seat.
Hot Seat.
Hot seat.
Yeah. It's kind of messed up now that I think about it.
I thought you said Yahtzee first.
No, not Yahtzee. Yahtzee was fun. At recess, you'd get together, and it was kind of like you'd have to reach a monthly quota. But once a month or once for a couple months, you'd sit down in front of a group of people, and they'd put you in the hot seat. And when you're in the hot seat, you just had to respond to their questions. And for some reason, even as a kid, that was the only time where you're like, I'm going to be honest. In the spirit of this game, in the integrity this game was built on, I'm going to be honest. And you had to answer crazy questions, and it's like in front of everybody, and it's like a lot of peer pressure. I remember one time at recess, we
Sounds
did
like
it,
Truth or Dare a little bit.
but like next level.
That's something else.
Like I was standing in front of bleachers of people.
Oh my god.
They're like, do you think my sister's hot? And I'm like, yeah. Like, it's just like, that was the game. So the way we're going to do it is, he has written questions. I have not, truthfully, it's not scripted. I've not seen these questions. I'm really hoping they're not horrible. I've written you questions. No, they're not too crazy. If you don't want to answer, you got to share an embarrassing childhood story.
Okay.
And if you do want to answer, which is encouraged, you answer.
Okay.
And we'll see kind of where we end up at the end of this. If you have any, what is the weirdest interaction you've had with a fan or someone that recognized you?
I was at a farmer's market one time.
This is recently?
No, this was a while ago.
Okay.
And some guy complimented my calves.
Yeah,
Like he said, "You've got really good calves." I'm like,
you've never met him?
I'm like, excuse me? Yeah. That's the first thing he said too. He's like, "Yo, what's up, Spencer? Your calves are fire."
Damn. What'd you say in response to that?
Thanks.
Thanks, bro. You too.
Thanks. Man. Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
It was strange, and then
Yeah.
he just left.
Really?
Yeah.
That was his mission.
Like, you got good.
If I ever see that guy, I'm gonna let him know
Yeah.
he's not skipping calf day. That's it.
Stay all right.
Okay. Wow.
Okay. What is your least favorite thing about Matt, the other co-host of this podcast?
Yo, dude, that's crazy, bro. That's crazy because he's gonna be the one editing this. He's gonna have to see this on repeat. By the way, Matt sends you his welcomes. He really wanted to be here. He helped me prep for the episode, so shout out, Matt.
R.I.P. Matt.
He's still alive, thank God. Yeah, that would have. Imagine if I was like, he did just pass away. Then you feel horrible. Yeah, but he did not. All right, I have two things.
Okay.
His posture when he sits on podcasts is perplexing. When he's on a podcast, the way he sits is just really weird.
Really hard-hitting answers here, bro.
Dude, stop. Because I love him, but this is one thing that every time I watch the DeBrook, he'll do this, and he'll do this, and he'll like ask a question from here.
He's in a zone.
He's locked. He gets dialed in, and it's like that's one thing I'm like on camera. That's interesting.
Mm-hmm.
I also think I would say he has an interesting haircut. All right, so you might have been wondering, Spencer, why is this plant here? Do you have any ideas? What kind of plant is it, if you were to guess?
It's some sort of palm.
I like that. Okay.
But it's like a plant and a half. There's like the stub.
All right. Okay, but now you're hating on the plant. That's not cool. So listen, out of 10, with 5 being the highest, how would you rate the song "Palm Trees" by Spencer Taylor?
Oh. I would say it's out there, dude.
And please explain why you decided one day to make a song about palm trees.
Bro, that's a
The
good
deep cut right there.
I'd give it a solid 8. I'd give it a solid.
All right, but then can we be objective?
Yeah.
If you're listening to that song,
Yeah.
comes on, you're chilling it.
Yeah, I don't know where I would want to listen to it.
Right. Yeah. What vibe is that for?
I don't
that
know.
Song.
It's interesting.
And you're on it, right? It's like other people.
It's my song.
Are you the only one on
Yeah.
it? Are you like was there autotune or like what was the vibe?
A little bit of autotune,
Yeah.
for sure. Definitely some autotune.
And
But
why
yeah, so
did you
Logan built like a badass studio in his house, like a really bad.
right, dude. He had a music phase.
State of.
He was
art.
taking singing lessons.
Logan actually had some fire tracks.
As a pipes on him?
Never released.
Really?
Yeah.
He just had the little.
I would actually hit him up and be like, dude, you gotta release that stuff. It was so.
No way.
But yeah, I just don't think he.
You recorded Palm Trees
in
in Logan Paul's studio.
Yeah.
We're about to see a resurgence in the palm trees listeners.
Yeah.
And why palm trees and what's
I don't know, man. I
really
just
rocks
love
palm
palm
trees.
So when I moved to Los Angeles, I saw all the palm trees, and I'm from Michigan, so I'm like,
Dude.
I love palm trees.
And then you literally heard a song about how much you love palm trees.
I love palm trees.
You know what? I'm gonna hop off the hate train, bro, dude.
How much money would someone have to offer you to punch me in the face right now? Be honest, man.
Be honest.
Yeah, be honest. That's a lot. Oh my gosh. God.
Dude, bro, actually.
Like, for you to stand up and punch, no, not slap, punch me in the face.
Oh,
Dude, you.
bro. Dude, I'm a broke college kid, bro.
So you're like 100, like what?
Nah, $100 is crazy. You
That's
got
low.
I really like what you got going on with the beard and stuff. I wouldn't want to.
I'm coming away with like a black eye, like a little bit of blood, and I'm just like, what the hell?
Yeah, your wife's like, how was the screening?
Yeah. All right.
Got punched in the face.
So how much?
Like sincerely?
Yeah, like 10 G's?
No, $1,000.
That low?
Man, I could use $1,000 right now
Yeah.
because I want to be a podcaster. I could really use $1,000.
Get like a new one microphone.
Get like an SD card. Nah, like realistically, to punch you in the face and ruin this friendship,
At least 100 racks.
I would say 25K.
I don't believe you.
It'll take it.
If you had 25K right now,
No,
on vibes,
I think if I had 3K right now.
I wouldn't.
Okay.
I wouldn't do it.
Okay.
Because it would be on camera. Anything I want to do with anyone, it's like, aren't you the bro who punched that guy in the face?
Punch someone in the face. I would need a big bag.
Have you ever punched anyone in the face?
I think, if I was in your shoes, if I was in college, I'd be like, yeah, 3K, that's good. But now I'm like, I don't know, man.
Yeah, all right. How much money to punch me in the face right now?
Somebody'd have to give me like, it'd be hard to say no to 100 grand. I might not even take the money. I might go donate it.
That is so disrespectful, by the way. That's way worse. Charity, that's for you. I'm doing that for the Children's Hospital. Let them know, you.
It's like that's good. What's the last lie you told?
This is not like that, like spicy, but it's super true. Because it's like just how it is. You actually, you're in the honorary Latino club now. I wonder if you've experienced this. If I'm saying I'm pulling up, I'm 10 out. I'm 15 out. If I'm saying I'm about to leave, 30 to 40 minutes. I'll be there in an hour, 6 to 7 hours. Yeah. Like Latino time is a very real thing for me. And my non-Latino friends get very upset about me doing this. And I think I might have even done it to these guys behind the cameras today. Oh, yeah. I was like, yeah, I'll be there in a minute.
Yeah. Like, oh, I did it to you coming out of the sauna.
Yeah. Bro, you're already getting the rub.
I was like, yo, you give me 5 more minutes.
Bro. Dude, in Latin culture, it's almost more disrespectful. Like if I'm having people over at 8 and you show up at 8 to the crib,
that's whack.
What is going on?
Fashion.
Bro, we're still vacuuming and stuff. Like show up at 9:30 like a normal person.
Yeah.
That's kind of how it works. But yeah, that's the last lie I ever told. I have told. How am I saying ever, dude? All right, we're probably jumping a little bit here. Least favorite country you have visited and why?
Probably Moldova.
Moldova.
Yeah.
All my homies say Moldova. Why?
So I was in Ukraine and I had to get out. I had to take a flight out to go to Turkey. And just getting through. So it's like kind of like a Russian controlled territory and part of it.
Is Moldova a country itself or no?
Yeah.
It is?
It's like the poorest country in Europe. They like tried to take my drone. They questioned me for a long time. And then I was like late for my flight, so I paid my Uber driver an extra $100. And this was actually the cool part. He drove like literally like 200 miles per hour. Like I was like,
some Russian guy.
yeah, some guy
That's
that does not
crazy.
speak English and he got pulled over and got a ticket. And
Did you have to pay that?
well, no, like we were flying to the airport and then he got pulled over and then the cop is like right on the ticket and I'm like telling the cop like, we gotta go, man. I gotta catch this flight. And he's like, gives us 5 more minutes. And 20 minutes go by, so he's probably Latino.
Probably Latino.
And I'm like, bro, I have to go. Like I just kept like trying to repeat it in English. You know why like nobody understands you and you just slow down and use your hands?
You think they'll
And it's
understand?
like, yeah. I'm like, I need to go now.
Yeah.
And I did make the flight.
You did?
Yeah, so but the reason why it's probably my least favorite country is because so I got to the airport and the guy wanted a tip and I gave him like a $50 tip, and then he was like, "Is that it?"
Dang, bro.
I'm like, "Bro, you got a ticket from the police. That the $50 tip is a good tip."
Right.
So I guess
Did you
that's
get
why
more?
it's his favorite country.
Did you get more, or were you like that?
No,
Keep the
I was
50.
like, get out of here. $50.
Wow, dude. Moldova. Okay.
So someone has to die right now.
These questions are like, wow, what?
Both of your parents are 200 innocent children. This is messed up.
This I also put a disclaimer on this one that said
What's
this may be too heinous of a question.
This
Thanks for
question may be too out of pocket.
So I will
I
share.
just share.
I'll share an embarrassing childhood story to not answer that question.
Okay, that's fair.
This is a horrible question.
Definitely don't.
Spencer, this is traumatic. What I'm about to tell you was kind of traumatic. Let's just lock in. I went through a magic phase
Nice.
in middle school. And at the time in middle school, I had, I think, one friend throughout all middle school. Middle school was not my era.
So
I also thought that wearing a neon orange fedora would be like swag. So I would walk in every day with orange fedora, YouTube channel. I was that guy, right? Low key, that school killed my creativity, but we're back, so it's all good.
yeah.
And did kill it, but like in that moment it did. Anyways, so I decided I was gonna sign up for the talent show from the whole middle school, talking hundreds of kids, and I waited too long to figure out what tricks I was gonna do. So like a week before, I like learned some tricks. This is so brutal, dude. So I get up on stage in front of hundreds of people. I have no friends at the time. Okay. My first trick was pouring water into a glass that had a paper towel in it. And the whole thing, the way the trick worked was I poured water in, it soaks it up. I go like this, nothing comes out. Mind blowing. I pour it in, poured too much. Water, everything hits the floor immediately. That's opening act. That's the opening trick, dude. I still have to do more, bro. So I am, once again, I'm a sixth grader. How are you? There's no amount of crowd work that's going to get you out of that. I'm in it. So I'm like, all right, wait till you see this bottle trick. So I had another trick. Once again, YouTube. You have a plastic bottle, you cut a slit in the back. They can't see the slit from the back. You take the coin, pop it in. They're like, how did that get in there? I go, you ready? Miss the bottle. Coin goes flying. I'm so serious. This is not a fake story. I am now like, what do? I don't have any friends, bro. This is insane, dude. I mean, once I did get friends in high school, they were like, bro, by the way, we haven't forgotten about that. That was the funniest thing I've ever seen. And I think my third trick was I tried to do a card trick, but no one else was on stage. So I did like a card trick with myself, and there was no cameras, so no one saw the trick. And then I was like, that's all, thank you. And no one clapped. And then I just kind of went home, put on my orange fedora, dude. I was like, all right, dude, back to the drawing board, bro. That's brutal. It was so bad. Maybe that's why I want to do that. What did you
cry like at all?
Yeah, dude. Yeah. Did I cry, bro? Are you serious? Can you imagine pouring a pitcher of water into a cup and be like, you'll never guess what's about to happen, and it all hits the floor, bro? Are you kidding me, dude?
That's sad.
Oh, dude, and now I care too much about people's approval. Whoops.
Yeah.
That's how that happens.
Maybe you should get that orange fedora.
Yeah, maybe I should
Bring it back.
Dude, yeah, bro. Then I afterwards I was like, I know what would get me out of this hole. I'm gonna start posting more magic videos on YouTube. That's what's gonna help.
That'll do it.
It didn't, but so I'm not answering your question. That's what we're doing.
That's fine.
Wow. All right. Out of all the Impaulsive co-hosts, who was the best and why?
I think I was the best.
Why?
I just think it was a good dynamic the three of us had.
Do you think George and Logan can squash the beef? Because if I'm being honest, I am so like, I love George and I also really respect Logan. And especially George, like going all into the Christianity stuff, it seems like it's like, we should reconnect. Like,
yeah, for sure. I pray they do.
You think they will?
I don't know. Maybe they have, like, off camera.
True. We don't know.
It's hard to say.
Yeah.
But yeah, I thought that whole thing was sad.
It really was.
It
Yeah.
was sad. I don't like to see beef.
I know.
With people, especially friends.
Because George didn't live there, right? But he was there all the time.
Yeah.
He hopped on the pod sometimes with you. I think there was one episode where we tried to kick you off or something.
Yeah. I came in to visit and hopped on.
Yeah.
But yeah, I hope they squash that. I hope this watched it.
Are you still in contact with George at all?
Every now and then.
Yeah.
He commented on.
He's killing it with his
Yeah.
podcast.
Yeah.
Totally killing it.
I think George has evolved where I see like his newer content. I feel he's coming from a much more humble heart. Like his like the Christian Avengers videos.
Yeah.
And I like a humble heart when you're bringing Christianity to the world, because there's like this tendency with Christianity to like separate yourself from everyone else, when in reality, like, Jesus was about loving our neighbor, loving our enemy, praying for our enemy. It's like, it's very hard things to do. And for whatever reason, I think modern Christianity gets into that separation factor, and, you know, judging and casting fear onto a lot of people. It's like,
even within the Christian
fear-based.
realm, like you'll see like comments of like Christian. It's like, bro, what are we doing here?
It's not Christ-like.
Exactly.
You know? Yeah.
We're doing
Well, that's why I wear this "What Would Jesus Do"
Oh wow.
bracelet. It's an OG. Do you remember these?
No.
Did it? Yeah, WWJD.
No, dude.
Oh, that was
Fire.
that was
WWJD. Shout out.
So to me, I think it's impossible to live like Christ,
Right.
because he's the perfect example.
He was the GOAT.
He's the GOAT.
Yeah.
But ultimately, I think that's what we should strive to do.
And you think now George is kind of getting to the point where he's like,
It feels that
Just
way.
being-
It feels.
it does.
It feels like he's more humble, and
He
he's
does.
you know, again, I think it's a tendency with a lot of Christians, especially that are like getting new to, like, they're passionate, they want to share the faith, but sometimes it can really scare people off more than it can invite them in.
Yeah. Okay. Last two. This may be the childhood story time. Jake or Logan, who do you like better and why?
They're both very different humans, but I really love them both.
An embarrassing childhood story.
Okay, so not gonna answer. They're both great.
Oh, I got a good one. So I got the idea to get on the loudspeaker in the school.
What age is this?
This was probably like 6th, 7th grade, somewhere in there.
Prime time.
And so every day our teacher would get on the loudspeaker and would like do the announcements. And I saw that he would like go to his phone and he would like type in the code, and then he would be like on the entire school loudspeaker, and he would like be talking, and he could say whatever he wants and everybody would hear. He could like read off the announcements. So I was like, whoa. And so for like 2 or 3 weeks, I studied the numbers that he was pressing on the keypad. And I studied the code, like I would write them down. I'd be like, 7, and then the next day I'd be like, and I like copied the code down, and I figured out how to do it. And at the time, so I didn't think about what I was gonna say. I was just
You're like, I just gotta get there.
I just gotta get that code so I could get on the loudspeaker. And so I get on the loudspeaker, and the only thing I could think of was that there was this famous video. There was this like viral video at the time going around where it was like this guy that was like high out of his mind that was looking at these. It was a double rainbow. Have you ever seen that video?
Oh yeah. It's an OG.
Oh my gosh, it's a double rainbow.
And he's like tripping out about how there's like 2 rainbows. And so I just did that. I just did like in front of the whole
school.
Yeah,
This is public school.
I was like, it's a double rainbow, and the whole school heard it right in the middle of the class, and everyone's like, "What the heck was that?"
You had to get into his office to do this?
No, it was in the classroom.
Oh,
Which
really?
was in the announcements.
No
was
way.
in the classroom.
What was the
And
repercussion?
so the embarrassing part was I got sent to the office, and because I was just like, I didn't think of the consequences. And I'm like put on the spot, and they're like threatening to like suspend me and like all this stuff, and I started crying. I was like, oh my god. And yeah, that was just, it was embarrassing.
Okay, last spicy question. Even if we have to cut this, I would love to know the answer. What's the wildest thing you had to cut from an episode of Impaulsive?
Nothing comes to mind.
Or like by far the craziest thing you experienced on that podcast?
And
Other
the
than
craziest
working
thing was the Riley Reid episode,
Oh yeah.
Porn Star episode.
Yeah, that was psychotic.
It was crazy. It was creepy.
That was kind of creepy.
When she like deep throated the mic, it's just like it's a historic thing. It's like,
Yeah, and then
like you think of like
Yeah.
things that happened in history, like the Mayflower, like George Washington crossing the Delaware River,
Yeah,
Riley Reid deep throating the mic
yeah.
on Impulsive.
That was a big moment.
It's like those three are kind of the things you think of.
Then it became the
The
mic.
U.S. Constitution,
Right.
like these are all in the same caliber.
Dude, and then it became the mic. That was a running bit. Like every time someone would sit down, just by the way, that's the mic.
Yeah, and we never cleaned it.
Oh, dude.
We never washed that mic cover.
Just because, like, in honor of, or in respect of what happened that
Yeah, I guess.
Dude, okay. Nothing from, like, Alex Jones. You had Alex Jones, right?
Alex Jones.
Like, bro, I'm sure it's got to be something.
Alex Jones was funny. He got drunk during the show
No
and
way.
ordered pizza during the podcast
While you were shooting.
while we shot it.
And he was drinking the whole time.
He was drunk out of his mind, dude.
Did he show up drunk, or was he like, I'm going to drink to get through this?
Yeah, I think he was like, I'm gonna drink to get through this.
All right, so we'll end with just a wholesome question to close this out. If you could sit down with your younger self, the kid dreaming big but unsure of what's ahead, what would you say to him?
Something along the lines of focus on creating good habits. Don't stress about the future. Don't worry about the past. Just focus on making good habits.
Love it. Love it. Focus on making good habits.
Yeah.
Sweet. Spencer, thank you so much for coming on the podcast. Really appreciate it. This was a super fun conversation. Guys, if you like this kind of content, please subscribe, hit the post notifications bell, and please, most importantly, check out The Death of Recess, QR code up on screen, the movement that's changing the education system forever. Are we giving this movement a name? We don't have to give it a name. It's an incredible movement.
The Recess Revolution.
Recess Revolution. Check it out. Thank you so much for doing this, bro.
Of course.
Oh, got it. Sweet. That's a wrap. Hey, everybody. Thank you so much. Not at all what I'm trying to say. Thank you especially to Brooks for seriously?
I'm making it such a
Yeah, I could have just said that, dude. I was fine, dude. So without further ado, thank you, and let's get into the episode. What the How am I messing up with the last word, bro? My promise to you, Matt. What the dude? Sorry, I got it. I'm gonna lock so hard, dude. So without further ado, thank you, and let's get into. Are you serious? Are you serious? Are you serious? I cooked so hard. That was so good.